everyone. Another book club with Women on the Move book club. And today is Thursday, March the 19th. The year is 2026. And we'll first start with introductions. I'm Cindy.
I am Linda.
I'm Melody.
Hello, Della.
I'm Vivian.
I'm Sadie.
All right, we're expecting one more person. And when they join us, you'll get to see who she is as well. But I'm going to turn it over to tonight's host, who is Linda. And she will share the title of the book, the author, and she will be leading our discussion.
All right, thank you. Okay, tonight, well, we've been reading the book. It's called News of the World. It's written by Paulette Giles. And this book is the story of Captain Jefferson Kyle Kidd, a 71-year-old man who makes his living by going town to town sharing news of the nation and of the world. And this is how he makes his living. He charges like 10 cents for people to listen to him as he read various newspapers from around the country and around about stories from all across the world. He accepts a proposal to deliver a young girl, aged 10, named Johanna, back to relatives after she has been recovered from a Native American tribe. The story paints the rugged landscape, adventures, and misadventure on the 400-mile trip to reunite Johanna with remaining family members. So that's the gist of the story. And I'm going to emphasize once again, Captain Kidd is 71 years old when he agrees to take this young child back to her family. Her parents and her younger sister were killed in an Indian raid, and she was taken captured, and then she was later rescued. And the individual who was part of her rescue had made a deal with Captain Kidd to escort Johanna back because he could not do it. He was an African American, and we've got to tell this story takes place shortly after the Civil War in the state of Texas. So he could not safely escort this young girl back across Texas by himself. So he passed that charge on along with, I think it was a $50 gold piece to Captain Kidd to get her back to her relatives. So that's going to play an important part in the story later on. So let's go ahead and get started. I did learn that the writer, this was made into a movie, and I did watch the movie, but the writer died last summer. So the author of the story died last summer. So I was looking forward to seeing another story about Captain Kidd. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we mentioned that Captain Kidd made his living by going from town to town reading the newspapers. So what advantages were there for the townspeople to hear the story the way Captain Kidd delivered it? Why didn't they just go buy a paper themselves and read it themselves?
A lot of the people during that time, were a little illiterate.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, these towns we learn in the story that he's stopping like every 30 miles. So these towns are distant from each other. And I'm sure all of them at this juncture in time don't even have the newspaper press to make the newspaper. So news travel by word of mouth.
Right. And he also had quite a collection of different newspapers. It wasn't just from the States, it was from other, countries. And, it was expensive for people to actually buy newspapers as well. There were some people who couldn't afford that. And being that it was such a rural place, they didn't get a whole lot of news. So this was like a revival.
Exactly. And I was just going to say, Kidd was a former newspaper printer, so he had the experience and the love for news. Go ahead, Vivian. I'm sorry.
What really shocked me was that he made money doing this. Every place that he went, he made money. So it was a money-making deal for him, and he enjoyed it.
Right. That's what I was going to get at. He was doing something he loved. no longer could do the printing of his newspaper
Right.
because he had to sell some of the machinery to finance stuff during the war.
During the war.
So this was his way of making a living and still have his hand in something he truly loved, which was the news. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, anything else anyone want to share?
I was thinking, I think it was a big social event for the people to come together and then get, because a lot of times when some news might have come to them, it might have been distorted, but they were getting the actual news. And then also, there it was a lot of people. I think one time he did a reading, he made like $20. So on dimes, that's a lot of people coming to hear you
Exactly.
report the news. So I think it was too a social event for the townspeople who didn't get a lot of social activity.
And I love how he planned. He went through all his papers and he pulled out stories of interest. And remember in one of the towns, he said he had to be very careful because the town was divided on some political issue. So he was trying to stay neutral to keep them from fighting. I think they did end up fighting, but you don't think of that. You just read the paper, for information, for entertainment. But he had to tread carefully of what he read to the various town people. So he had to go in and do a little research to know what political side they were on, what could antagonize them, and what would make them feel great. So I like the fact that he didn't just get the newspaper and read it, but he pulled specific stories in each of those towns he went into.
And he tried.
Another thing I noticed is that one group was disappointed that he wasn't reading something about them.
Right. Right.
The brothers, yeah.
Yes.
We killed a lot of people. Why are we not in the news?
And I think it was important too that he would make sure that it would ebb and flow. So that it would kind of get them excited and then bring them down and calm them down to that point. It almost was a performance, and he was really trying to make sure they got the information, but at the same time he didn't want to lose them, and so he really handpicked a lot of those things to make sure he knew his audience.
Exactly. He really knew how to share the news, and then he was known because he made this trek. He'd go around to the towns and circle back around. So I'm sure when people knew he was coming to town, it was like it was an event. And who knows, it may be that he just came through once a year or once every 6 months. It wasn't like he was there every week or two.
Right.
And I think it was something about his voice as well, because I remember one of the guys, I really loved his voice when he was reading the story. So he must have had that voice that grabbed your attention and made you want to just hang on to every word he was saying.
Like Paul Harvey.
Okay, now this story occurs at the end of the Civil War, where states and men took up arms against the Union, had certain restrictions placed on the citizens. Can you share some of the restrictions the citizens of Texas faced in regards to these restrictions?
Well, they couldn't carry firearms, right?
Right.
So that protection was, they didn't have it really. I mean, not in that, not from having a gun.
They could only carry buckshot to shoot a
rifle
for their food.
Rifles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It couldn't do damage. It could hurt, but not do a lot of damage.
And what did you think of the soldiers when they were in public gathering? The Union soldiers had to be stationed near.
Yeah.
So that was another restriction that was placed on him. How did this not be having a weapon hinder Captain Kidd in the story?
From a protection standpoint, when you think about it, him traveling and you're out in the open, it was a lack of protection. It was just a lack of protection for him.
Right. Because he always had to worry about people robbing him.
Yes, because some of the towns were lawless.
Yeah.
So people just kind of did what they wanted to do. So it was very scary.
Well, we see that
in no relationship.
Yeah, we see that in the very beginning when the guy he followed him and then finally said what his desire was after the
Mm-hmm.
third time, and you already know the captain was wary of him anyways. He was like, something's up with this guy. And then he knew he was going to be attacked.
And for 71 years old, he was a tough old man.
He was tough.
He surely was.
He was.
Exactly. And think about it. He carried cash. It's not like he had a credit card. I mean, he carried cash. So he was very vulnerable in terms of getting robbed because he was known. So people, you find out who he is and he's out there by himself. It was
And
great.
having a kid on top of that who was
and a girl.
A little bit of a wild child. And yeah. Although she was a tough cookie too. So
He was.
Johanna was feisty. So since Melanie brought up Johanna, let's go ahead and talk about little Johanna. Okay, now after the Captain Kidd agreed to take Johanna back to her family, to her aunt and uncle, he made a remark, "But I have taken on this task and I have to try." What do you think this statement means? What did he have to try? Why do you think he should assume this responsibility? Or do you think, when we keep saying he was 71, do you think he should have taken on this task of trying to deliver this young girl back to her family?
I think he felt obligated to do it when he was asked by Britt because there wasn't anyone else to do it.
Right.
So I think he felt like, wow, if it's not me, who else is going to do it? And back in those days, people had a different sense of responsibility, which, we've kind of lost. So he sees this girl, she needs him, and he just, okay, he was reluctant, but he did it.
Yeah.
And their word was their bond at that time. And
Right.
his reputation was based on that, on his words.
Also, when he heard her story and what happened to her family, he also felt like, she needed to be reunited with family because of the hardships that she had already witnessed.
Right. And you know what? I heard something
the story
recently.
really
Go ahead, Harriet.
The story kind of really reminded me a lot of True Grit with Maddie and Rooster Cogburn, this older man and this young girl who has a need and has gone through some trauma and tragedy, and he just felt a need to help her and vindicate her. And so I kind of saw that throughout this story, and how similar to True Grit, Rooster Cogburn and Maddie, he felt obligated, but he didn't really want to bond with her in a sense. But then as they went on the story developed, you see this caring and this bond and this family-like relationship develop. And I saw that kind of in Captain Kidd and Johanna in their story.
Exactly. And based on what Vivian said, Captain Kidd, he had compassion for Joanna. And I heard something recently by a pastor. He said, compassion makes you move. It puts you in action. When you have compassion for something, you do something about it.
Yeah. I really feel like too, he had a dual responsibility in that he respected Brett.
Yes.
And he didn't want him to get caught up in what he knew was inevitably going to happen if he tried to get her to her family. And so at first, he takes that responsibility, and then now you've got this child, and he's like, thinking even of his own children and what would have happened to them. And so he had kind of that, it was like he really didn't have a choice because, here he has this respected man he was wanting to help, and he has this little girl that just needs to be back with her family.
Right.
And he seemed to understand too, he had the understanding of the Native Americans. So like he knew that it was probably very difficult for them to let go of her, but that there was a necessity because that was the agreement. And it was this double-edged sword, she was happy there and they were happy with her, but she had to be returned to her family. So I think he kind of understood that whole juxtaposition.
Another thing that you mentioned, Melody, of him thinking about his children, not only did he have children, they happened to be two girls.
Daughters.
And that right there meant a
Mm-hmm.
lot to him to get that little girl back to her family because
Mm-hmm.
he understood.
I also believe that he said he was traveling so much when he was raising his own daughters that he
Yes.
felt like he missed a lot.
Yes.
And so, in a way, whatever the compassion he had for her, he connected it to his girls. Recognize this girl needed him.
Yes.
And it was almost like he was trying to make up for
Yeah.
not being there for his girls every day.
I think he even said that at one point too. It was like this was
Yes.
kind of his redemption, his trying to move forward.
It's a section in the book. It says, "A cranky old man. I raised two of them already," referencing his daughters. A celestial voice said, "Well, then do it again." So that was his motivation when he was getting frustrated. Why am I doing this? I've already raised two girls. I've been through their mood swings and this and that. I'm too old for this. And this voice out of nowhere in his mind, well, do it again.
Yeah, God will get you.
Oh, he's definitely a girl dad. I mean, like
Yeah.
I have four girls, and I mean, Paul would do the same thing and be like, "No, I can't do it." Oh, I will do it because I'm a girl dad.
Yeah, so I think having the daughters was good for him. So he had the background, so he kind of knew how to deal with her. And I like the fact that he was patient with Johanna.
Yes.
Now, in one of the towns, he encountered one of his friends. Her name is Doris, and I'm told that the author wrote a book about Doris and her husband as a follow-up to this story, I believe. And Doris said to him, he had to have someone watch Johanna while he go read the newspaper to keep her from running off and to make sure she was safe. So he requested Doris to stay with her one night. And she made the comment after I think Johanna ran away, but they found her. She saw her tribe and she was trying to get their attention, and they didn't hear her because of the storm or something. And then Doris had a conversation with Captain Kidd, and she said, "And now that's three languages the child must know. Do you think exposures to three different cultures helped or frustrated Johanna?" She had the German culture from her parents, then the Native American culture, then the English culture. Do you think that frustrated Johanna, or what impact do you think it had on her based on the young woman at the end of the story?
I think initially as a child, I think it confused her.
Yes.
It was trying to live in these worlds and, trying to grasp the understanding of each of the worlds, because as we saw, they were all very different. And so trying to, as we all try to do, as you try to assimilate, as you try to fit in with your environment, I would imagine that it was very confusing. I'm not sure. I guess the frustration, she could have frustration, but I think it was more confusing, more like, okay, where do I go now?
But another thing,
battery's running low. I got to go get my charger. Keep talking.
Okay. Another thing, I think he considered that, and he indulged her by teaching her his name and making sure that he taught her the culture very patiently.
Correct.
Especially when she started eating, she wanted to eat with her hands, and he, very calmly showed her how to eat with a fork instead. And then I think Doris introduced her, or was it Doris that gave her clothes? But she got those dresses and stuff, and she reluctantly put them on, but she had to get used to all of that. But he had a lot of patience with her to get that, understanding so that she could learn slowly.
He did. Because think about it. He's 71 years old. She's 10. And he's been out on his own for a long time. And his daughters are grown. So he's just on his own. He's an independent man. So for him to take her on and then be so patient and kind that was just beautiful to see. It really was. Because, of course, she was frustrated because she acted out a little bit. And, but she learned. And one thing about children, they are so adaptable.
Resilient.
Yes,
They really
resilient
are.
as well. Yes, because that little girl went through a lot. You know,
Yes.
the book
I
didn't delve into it, but think about it. It could have been she saw her parents massacred, you know, and then you're taken by these people who massacred your parents. And, you know, we don't know, were they really kind to her all the time? They could have been harsh with her as well. And then now she really is shown kindness by Captain Kidd. And I'll leave it there because this little girl went through a lot.
She did.
I love that he allowed her to take the doll, and it was kind of like a therapeutic for her to be able
Exactly.
to watch her, what she considered her family, and he allowed that to happen. You know, he knew what she was thinking, and I just appreciated that he didn't disturb that.
And she wanted to stay with the Indians on there. She was used to them. She wanted to stay with them, but he was very kind and yeah, took his time, transforming her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing that was pointed out, and I can't remember who pointed it out to him, but there were other women that had been rescued back into their home society, and they
Right.
starved themselves to death because it was too much for them. So
Yeah.
he had to make sure he did that little by little and very strategically.
Vivian, you are so perceptive. That was my next question. We read
Uh-oh.
about two other children who had been captured and returned to their families, but had difficult time assimilating back into their former life. What steps, if any, did Captain Kidd take to assure Johanna's story would end different? And you have already explained it. He went over the definitions and explained how to pronounce things. He tried to teach her, you got to dress, how to eat, and things like that, getting her ready, I believe, so that her new family would accept her and not reject her. So he wanted them to see her that she still knew some of the language, and he even knew I think he knew a little German. He would say some German
Right.
words to her, and trying to get her to understand. And all of that was prepared. He did all of that to prepare her so that she would not be rejected by
Right.
her family.
And you know, that also helped them to bond together as well.
Absolutely.
I think it showed that someone else could care for her.
Amen.
Because her identity had been with the Kiowa Indian tribe, and being separated from them, you could imagine she had a feeling of abandonment. Nobody cared, and I'll just run wild. Well, he took the time to
Right.
nurture her and groom her, and showed her that he cared for her, and I think that helped her to let her guard down and accept the love and caring that he was offering.
Exactly. Because when you think about it, she was, even though her parents were killed, it's still a form of abandonment.
Yep.
And then the Kiowa, she's taken from them. So that's another form of abandonment. Now she's with Britt for a short while. And now, wow, he's passing me off to somebody else. Now here's this older man. How many more times do I have to move around?
Right. Right.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Okay, let me see what I have here. Where's that question? Where did it go? Hold on. Oh, to the white man's necessary world, which did not seem to want her either. So we just talked about she was with her family, then the Native American, then back with Captain Kidd, and seemed like she was mistreated, especially in one of the towns. Remember, the young lady was so mean to her at first, and then Captain Kidd explained her story, and she came back later and gave Johanna some clothing and some shoes that I don't think she ended up wearing. And do you think Johanna got the impression, and we just said it, she was traded by the Indians. She went to Britt. Britt gave her to Captain Kidd. Now Captain Kidd is getting ready to pass her off. Do you think that she felt that she was being rejected by the white world that she was trying to become back in part of, even
Yeah,
though Captain Kidd was trying to help her?
definitely. I think she was. I think that it felt like full rejection
Right.
because she was just being passed around.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
also think she was hurt by it as
Oh,
well. That
yes.
final trade-off
Mm-hmm.
really hurt her.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it even talks about when he first takes her on and she's terrified of the soldiers, and
Right.
he just keeps trying to reassure her, no, I've got you. I'm with you. You're safe here. I mean, it was a constant, I would imagine even work with the Native Americans, even though they might have been um, loving to her and stuff, but they themselves were being pursued and different things. So I'm sure even in her small little mind, she was like, I have to run from these people,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's how she learned how to take care of herself, because she
Yes.
helped Captain Kidd
right,
because the Indians were always pursued and tried, they were trying to kill them. So
right.
she had to make sure she could take care of herself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk about my next question said, do you think Johanna resigned herself to her new life when she stopped trying to escape from Captain Kidd, or do you think a trust bond was formed and she felt safe?
The latter.
She felt
Yes.
safe,
Mm-hmm.
finally felt safe.
Definitely.
Yes, she felt safe
Yes.
with him.
I think it might have been kind of both in the beginning,
In the
but
Mhm.
beginning, yes.
yeah, because she knew she couldn't get away. I mean, she tried, attempted
Mm-hmm.
several times, but then it became, especially when they were pursued by that other gentleman who, they needed to save themselves. At that point, that's when you really see the bond took hold
Yes.
with both of them, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. And remember how he saved her, but how did Johanna save Captain Kidd?
Mm.
Oh, in a lot of
She
ways.
Yeah.
I think she kept him young. She kept him
Mhm.
moving forward. He gave she
And she
gave him
knew.
she gave him purpose.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, even though
Yes.
he talked about his aches and his pain, and this was hurting and that was hurting, he kept going because
But
of
she
her.
gave
Exactly.
him an experience that he didn't have with his own daughters,
Yeah.
to actually bond with her and to take care of her. He didn't have that with his own daughters. So that really was a saving grace for him.
Yes.
Exactly. And she became a nice little helper because she made sure those people paid the
She
money.
sure did.
Money.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
So he
And
had a
then,
nice little partner.
And
Hmm.
she also helped when the I'm gonna call him the human trafficker was trying to
right.
kidnap her. There
Yes.
was a
Mm-hmm.
feisty little something in that
Hmm.
gunfight,
Yeah.
and it was her innovative idea. Remember what the idea
Yes.
was?
Yeah, with the
That saved their
dimes.
life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They ran out of ammunition and the
Ammunition,
dimes
right.
worked.
Yes.
And he didn't even know to use that until she showed him.
Yeah, because all
Correct.
he had was birdshot because it was illegal for him to have real bullets. So she
Right.
Hmm.
made him some bullets, not those
Hmm.
dimes.
Exactly. And
And
there
then
was a statement in the book that said she was taught with the Kiowa tribe, you were resourceful with
Or,
everything that you had.
Mm-hmm.
You
mhm,
Yes.
Right.
found the
mhm,
use.
Hmm.
mhm.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't
I
waste, they
thought
lived
I
off the
thought that
land.
was a very key point when they talked about that was pride. Part of their pride is that they didn't have to uh, worry about different things. They knew how to be resilient and resourceful, and
Hmm.
they took
Right.
pride in that, doing that.
Yes.
Okay, my next question is was a statement in the book. It says cultures were minefields, and and briefly we've talked about this already. What cultural minefields did Captain and Johanna encounter? And one of them I put was of course, the three different languages. Okay,
Mhm.
anything else?
Well, man versus women. I mean, women really, and children at that too, they were considered a property, which is why the guy who wanted her didn't think that was a problem. And why wouldn't you sell her to me? I mean, it's like that was not even a question. And and then of course too, you have Black trying to travel through a country that was volatile. So, and then I would say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be talking all that much, but each village was different. It had its own idiosyncrasies in it, as you will say, I mean, some had more bars where some had maybe a little more churches. I mean, it was, that culture even was different.
Right.
And then everybody lived in a house, but she was not used to living in a house. They moved all the time. The Indians moved all the time.
Right.
And I think that bonded her with the captain also, because he went from place to place and she enjoyed that movement,
Right.
And one thing that she did that she thought was so helpful when she killed that chicken, and it was like a shock to everybody, and it was totally different from what they were accustomed to, and she was so proud of herself. And
that was
food.
Kind of,
And after they killed the trafficker, when she went to scalp him, and the captain said, and so she couldn't understand that. Yeah. So those are some of the cultural differences that they had to overcome. And I think Captain, he was great at helping her to facilitate all of those things. And we keep mentioning his kindness, his patience in dealing with her. Even when her idea of bathing was to be completely naked out. And that's when that young lady was screaming at her and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. To share the story. He was so patient. He went and got a little blanket and put around her.
I liked it when they went to the different cities, and remember when they went to Dallas, and she was like, I don't like it here. I want to go back to San Antonio. I don't like it here.
Right.
And I thought that was really good that she stood up for herself. She had her voice.
She found her voice. Okay, there was a word on the side of the wagon, and it kept showing up over and over and over in the story. I think it was curative waters. That was the title on the wagon. Remember that? Curative waters. And I got in my notes, the name applied to a store that was offering, I guess, some water that cleaned or refresh or cleanse. How does that title reflect back to the story of Johanna and Captain Kidd? Curative waters, refresh, cleansed.
Oh my goodness. When you looking at the end of the story, we know, my goodness, Johanna, she refreshed him. He refreshed her, particularly at the end when he came back. Right. That was just totally, but they were refreshing and they were curative for each other.
They were healing each other.
Because he was hurt over the passing of his wife. Remember?
Right. And I don't think he realized how lonely he was until Johanna was with him. And then after he dropped her off, it was like, oh, the light was gone. Some of the spark was gone. She held a special place in his heart.
Right.
I was surprised that he went on and dropped her off, even after that guy tried to warn him that she would be mistreated and she would not be happy there, and they're just going to use her. And he still dropped her off, I guess, because
he left.
I know. His word. Yeah.
Because
he was keeping his word.
His word was his bond.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
He had to keep his word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I don't think she didn't stay there. She didn't stay there long. He came right back and got her.
Exactly. But think about it. Somebody tells you this, and then you're like, what's for first and foremost? I fulfilled my obligation. I have to do this. I don't want to let her go. I feel close, but I know I have to give her back to her family. And I think he knew something was off, but he wasn't
He
sure.
did.
But then when he got away from the situation, then, you're sitting with it and you're like, then he started becoming even more uncomfortable.
I think also, I think what it was at 2 days that he waited, I think it also was trying to give that family a chance to embrace her. And that was, I think because ultimately it's kind of like in our system today, we've got a lot of foster care and different things, and the state really wants them to get back with their parents, but sometimes that's not the best thing for them. And it's hard because you think family is the bond, but in this situation, they really didn't care about her dead family. They just cared about themselves and how they could use her to help themselves. And, but it took, I honestly feel like the captain was trying to get them to, I don't know, to make a better decision.
To do the right thing.
Yeah.
Because he had already been told about how they treated their nephew.
Yes.
And I guess he figured, well, this is a young lady. They'll do
the little girl
different with her.
Yeah. And they did
They
it.
didn't.
Do you think he got a little suspicious when the uncle was more worried about what you do with the $50 gold piece?
Yes.
Yeah.
He wanted receipts.
Wagon to bring the baby home.
Right.
Yeah, he kept asking for receipts. I think he wanted some of that money back. If you didn't spend it, I want the money back. He just kept asking for the receipts.
Yeah, and I think that's what alarmed the captain. In addition to the man telling him about the family's history, and that the uncle was more interested in how did you spend the money more than, well, tell me, how did the trip go with with my niece?
Yeah, like
He didn't care about that. He wanted his money back.
Yeah, how can we help her? What, I mean, they didn't care about her whatsoever.
No.
In fact, my next question says, I think the aunt says, let me find it. The aunt name was Wilhelm or something. She must learn to work again, said Wilhelm. She must learn our ways again. And Captain Kidd took a deep breath and said to the aunt, that was said by the aunt. Do you think Captain Kidd agreed with that assessment?
No.
But then he didn't really know what they meant either. Because learning our ways, she's been out there in the quote unquote wild. She has to learn our ways. He didn't know the depth of that statement at that time.
But if they had said she must learn our ways again first, but the first thing out of her mouth was she must learn to work again, not be a child again. She must learn to work.
I think that he had some inkling that something could be off because he kept telling them, give her a chance. Give her time to be here and assimilate into this environment.
They weren't willing to do that, as he soon found out.
They just wanted free labor. Just free labor.
Now, there weren't a whole lot of characters, but which character really kind of touched your heart between Johanna and Captain?
Between Johanna and Captain Kidd? Oh my gosh, that's tough. Because they were both Captain Kidd. I just love his fortitude, his compassion, his ability to take on the responsibility of this young girl. 71 back then was way older than 71 now. People back then, most of them didn't even live to 71 years old.
They've been through 2 wars.
Right.
Yeah, so I love the fact that he was I loved his integrity. I loved his patience, his compassion. He went back for her. I just love Captain Kidd. But Johanna, she was so resilient, so resourceful, so courageous. And my heart just goes pitter patter for her because of all that she endured, and she still came out on top.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the scales are balanced for me.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
I think for me, I'm like Cindy, both of the scales are balanced, but I love the ending
Mm-hmm.
when he got to give her away
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and how much they had gone through together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just to me as a father, um, and really he was grandfather age to her.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the heights of the relationship, to have that time when you can give your daughter away in marriage. And I think he said something about um how close she had come to him and now I have to give her away.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very tender part of the story.
So, oh, Harriet, you're almost going to make me cry. And I thought it was so tender who she married.
I
You
Yes.
know, he
know.
saw
Yes.
her all those years ago. She was a little girl. He was probably, they went to war much younger back then, but
Right.
Right.
he could have
Mm-hmm.
been 18 years old,
Mm-hmm.
so, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there were at least 8 to 10 years or more between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
remembered her. He was so touching. He gave that little girl a taffy, and then fast forward, and that's who she marries.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That was beautiful
Yes.
because a
All right.
lot of ground had been traveled in those years,
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
both of them.
Right.
And
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 not only that,
even how his daughters accepted her.
right, that's what I was
that's
going
what
to
I
say.
was gonna say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They came back and it really made a full family for the captain. It was good
Yeah.
for his.
Mm-hmm.
All three of his daughters.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. Okay, did anyone highlight anything in the book? Anybody highlight anything?
I think we talked about all of the
Yeah.
highlights. This book was absolutely beautiful.
Was a good story.
Did anybody highlight anything that was kind of touching to them or something? I'll share what I highlighted, and then maybe we can end by talking about this. I highlighted, I think it's in chapter 13. Um, Maybe life is just carrying news, surviving to carry the news. Maybe we have just one message and it is delivered to us when we're born and we're never sure what it says. It may have nothing to do with us personally, but it must be carried by hand through a life all the way and at the end handed over and sealed.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Good one.
Amen. Amen. I wrote down two things. I wrote down a number of things, but these two things I'll bring out and we discussed it. I brought it up briefly, but this is Johanna. She learned from Kiowa to value courage and make use of anything at hand. And then I wrote down the captain said at the end, and you guys alluded to this, how many years I worried about you and also delighted in your company. And now it's time for me to give you
Give
away.
you right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And I love how it ended with her husband.
Mm.
He was it a cowboy? So he traveled a lot on the open plains. So she returned almost back to what she loved. She didn't like
Mm-hmm.
being in the house, being confined. She loved,
Mm-hmm.
so she got back a part of the life that was lost to her from her childhood. She got it back with her husband.
Right.
And it was just that's beautiful ending out that the grandfather in talking with her in the room before he walked her downstairs to give her away.
Mm-hmm.
That was beautiful.
That was.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that looked at the movie, how was it compared to the book?
I thought it was still a good
It was
movie. I think
close.
the story was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a little different that way. But
I like the book better than the movie.
Okay.
I think isn't that typical of books anyway?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
always.
Yeah.
So, I do think Tom Hanks did a good job with it. It was I don't know. But yeah, I would say it was a little slower, and some of the messaging was different than I think the book had.
Okay.
I think one person who read the story, they were taken back by all the description of the landscape. I thought that was beautiful, but they did not like that. They thought it
I like
interfered
that.
with the story.
What was interesting for me is while I was reading this and a little bit afterwards, we were traveling through Texas.
Oh.
And so some of the things they talked about, like Fredericksburg and San Antonio and those things, I had been there. So it was like I knew what they were talking about when they talked about the meeting house and the different things, you know. So it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of fun.
That's good.
So,
and I like how they talked about how small was it, Dallas? How small it was. If you think about Dallas today, say, oh, they can see it now.
right, right.
Well, if there's no other remarks about the story, that's the story of News of the World. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. I loved it because it was about books. Because this man was not about books, but about the newspaper. I had never heard of this concept before I read this book. That this is how people got their news back then.
Right.
And every time he told a specific story, I'm going to go see if that really happened in the world. And it did, about the expedition, the people that was north. I went and looked it up in Wikipedia and read the whole thing. I said, oh, that's true. So the author did a lot of research to include these facts in the story. And to me, that was fascinating that I diverted to find out if this was actually happening in real life. And most of the incidents news story that he mentioned, it did correlate with real life. So to me, that was awesome. I love the book, and I hope you loved it.
We all did as well.
Out of it. Okay, that's
Awesome.
it.
Thank you for an awesome book club, Linda.